Oh, here come my
Okay.
sweater right here.
Oh my goodness, y'all. Greetings, everyone who's joining us live. Our first guest coming out of setting up our YouTube channel to really start the healing process as women and as mothers and as a people of color, because we've never really looked at our trauma. We just go from thing to thing and we think everything is going to be okay, but then it turns out that it ends or what have you. So today I have my guest. I love her so much. And that's Tiffany Evans. And Tiffany has her talk show called Tiffany Talks. And she has produced such shows as How to Balance Your Feminine, Masculine Energy, Talk to Your Children, Transformation, What It Looks Like, Abused Mothers, and so much more. So she got my interest. And I love her. I said it before. I just love this young lady. So so I want to just give a little information on the topic because we're talking about spiritual oxygen. And it's a lot like breathing, physical breathing, and it's a process of exhaling impure and inhaling pure energies. Just
Mm-hmm.
as physical breathing provides a constant supply of oxygen, which is necessary for energy production, breathing represents rhythm and balance. The same is true of our spiritual life. Breathing spiritual oxygen involves spiritual renewal, which involves feeling unrefreshed or inspired or reconnected to our deepest sense of purpose and meaning. Spiritual renewal is like breathing in. How do you get to spiritual renewal after a breakup or a divorce? Well, how do you find your way back to your best self? Let's face it, when you are with a partner, you lose a little bit of yourself with that person. When that relationship ends, it leaves a gaping hole of emotions or hope. My guest today is Tiffany Evans, and she shares her journey to finding her spiritual oxygen after a divorce. So,
Oh,
without further ado, Tiffany, introduce yourself to the people.
hello, 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 gods and goddesses. How are you guys? Welcome. I'm so honored to be here today. I'm very passionate about this topic. I want to thank you, Mrs. Ziza. I love you too, to the moon and back. You are so amazing. You were with my journey before when I was in the marriage and after the marriage, and I'm just so thankful to be able to flourish and go through this. So my name is Tiffany, of course, and I've been married for 24 years. Okay, I got in a relationship at a very, very young age, and through that time, I feel like the biggest thing that I found through that 24-year marriage was the fact that I was living in a big, massive illusion, like a big bubble of illusion where my eyes
Mm,
was covered. I wasn't really seeing my truth. I really wasn't standing in my truth. I didn't know who I was. I didn't understand what I'm supposed to be here to do. All I
mhm,
knew was just running and chasing after what my ego wanted. It
mm,
wanted everything right now, right quick, hurry, let's do this, and this is the life that I kind of created and manifested for myself. I created something in ego and I manifested something in my ego, but it wasn't something that I manifest from the divine, from source. So when I realized and I stopped at one point and I realized and I said, wait a minute, hold on, Tiffany, you know, why does this, like you said it when you said this person takes something from you, why do you allow this person to have this most vulnerable part of you? Why does your emotion
mm,
like this? I started asking myself questions, and that's what kind of allowed me to really step into the healing process, and then as well as opening up my eyes into
mm,
what I was really, really sitting in. Because
mm.
yeah, it was a
Right.
lot.
Oh my goodness. When did you first realize, though, at what point into the marriage did you first realize that this is not something that you wanted your life to be about? I hope that's the right way in putting it.
Yeah, I realized it 2 years after the relationship.
Two years.
2 years.
What made you stay for 22 more?
To be honest with you, Miss Aziza, it was just codependent on my emotions. It was just holding on to something that I was comfortable and fulfilling at that moment. But
Mm.
in the beginning of our relationship for 2 years, there was no arguments.
Mhm.
Everything was fine. But then when I got pregnant, we started getting into these really, really bad toxic arguments.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, it was just, that's when I knew. That's when the journey began of me actually packing my things up each month and leaving. Like for the last 20 years or 22 years, I was married for 24 years, 22 of those years, every single month, I'm pack all my stuff and I would leave and then I would come back a week later. And I did that. That was a cycle, a loop that I just kept myself in. It was very, very, very toxic.
Oh
So
my
I did two
goodness.
years afterwards, but I felt
Mhm.
stuck and I just felt like this was comfort. Where am I going
Mhm.
to go? Who's going to set me? Who's going to love me? I thought that was love. So it was a lot of like self doubt and a lot of things where it's just, I just didn't understand that there can be a way out. There can be
Wow.
life without this person. So
Wow.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. For me, I knew even before we got married, but it was this pressure I put myself under. I was getting older
Mm-hmm.
and I figured it's time that I did it. I don't even know if I did it for love. I just thought it
Mm-hmm.
was time that I did it for all the wrong reasons, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And 8 years later, I regretted I regretted it because
Wow.
yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. So what would I asked you the biggest turning point for you, you said in 2 years. So I kind of jumping ahead a little bit. How did this affect the children? Because you said you got pregnant, and I know you have children, not just one child. How did that affect them for the 22 years that you stayed?
So my kids. My daughter took the most biggest impact of it all,
Mm-hmm.
and then one of my sons did. It created a really, really bad anxiety in one of my sons.
Mm.
My oldest son, because I have four children, my oldest son
Wow.
was kind of like eye opening. So it showed him a level of toxicity that he knew he didn't want to be in or do in. So it kind of forced him
Mm.
into spirituality, understanding himself. I see my parents going through this. This is what I don't want to go through. But
Mm.
this impact that I've seen, and I'm not sure with my youngest son, I'm sure I'll see the effects of it soon because sometimes it don't come now. It can
Yeah.
manifest into something later.
Yeah.
But my daughter is the oldest and she took it the hardest. And I feel like she kind of took it the hardest because she normalized arguing. She thought that was a way of like love because his family and not necessarily
Mhm.
my family, but his family, they come from like arguing, then making up. And it's like, oh, this is what families do.
Do oh.
So she kind of normalized arguing. And again, like we're still healing and stuff through it as well. Like these last
Mhm.
2 years of me being out of this marriage probably been the most peaceful of my life, of my 41
Mhm.
years of living. These last 2 years has been the most
Oh.
peaceful.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah, so my kids, I get triggered. I don't like arguing. I don't like yelling in my house. And when we have conflicts, I kind of like to handle it a different way, kind of like to talk it out a little bit. So, like I said, my daughter took on it the most. She
Mhm.
the most severely damaged through the whole process of it. And I'm
Mhm.
not talking about like the divorce hit her hard, but then the fact that they're living in a home where, they're carrying all my stuff to the car. When I come back, they're putting all the stuff back in the house. And they're looking at me like, Tiffany,
Mhm.
like, I mean, mom, like, what are you doing? And that's when, like, the last time when I did this, my oldest son looked at me and he said, I love you, dad. I love you, mom, but you two just don't need to be together. It's just, y'all are great,
Wow.
but y'all just don't need to be together. And when he
Wow.
said that, it really like sunk in. I was like, wow, like this got to stop. Like this cycle
Yeah.
has to stop.
Yeah.
So it was actually kind of like they was parenting us a little bit. Like
So was there any drama like when you packed up to leave? Was there any drama from his part, or? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, all
Mm-hmm.
right, the drama was, and I don't lie about anything that I do. I take full accountability for me. I was abusive. So
Mm-hmm.
I was raised in a household where I seen my mom beat my father. I beat on my ex-husband. He would go to work with black eyes and scratches on his face, and he
Tiffany.
that all he could do was try to hold me. Like I would literally black out and just turn red. And that's what really drove me into like, Tiffany, what is this? Like, what are you doing? This is not like, it was like literally my higher self was talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lot of the physical activity was me. Like Mrs. Ziza, when I tell you, I would tear my entire home up. I would bust holes in the wall, break things, flat
Mm-hmm.
tires. Like I just completely went into an uproar and a rage just for him saying one little small thing
Was
to me. I just went off and just went
wow.
crazy. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it was a lot. It was to the point where like my whole arm like swelled up. Like it got,
Mm-hmm.
and my kids was like, "Mom, look at your arm. You're not even realizing what you're doing to your arm."
What?
Yeah, it was.
Tiff. So
Yeah.
this sounds like, and I'm not a psychologist, although I completed my psychological degree, but I'm not a clinical psychologist. But here we are in our Sacred Warrior Mothers group. We took a look at trauma, especially when it comes to our boys,
Yes.
because we recognize that the boys are thrown by the wayside. Nobody really pays them any attention. When it comes to clothes or shoes or anything, sometimes it's difficult to find anything for boys. And it's like the boys are thrown out there, go there and do something. And we spend so much time mentoring our girls that the boys are by the wayside. So
Right.
Sacred Warrior Mothers, we started looking at our boys. And out of that, we said we can talk about our boys all we want, but if we don't engage in that healing as a mother, as a woman, then it is fruitless, because boys
Yeah.
become men and men become fathers and husbands, and they take all of that trauma with them into their
Yeah.
relationships, and they
Yeah.
don't even recognize it's trauma because it's intergenerational. They don't even recognize that it's happening. So I
Yeah.
say that to say, I'm hearing you, and I'm hearing an intergenerational trauma, because you said you saw this with your mom,
Mhm.
and that's trauma that mom brought with her, because that's something she saw from
Mhm.
her mother, and vice versa. You see what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
brought that to you because she didn't have a better way, you
Right.
know, coming out of this enslavement that we've been through as a people, because we didn't come here slave. Coming out of that enslavement, all we saw was that negativity. Let's refer
Mhm.
to the Willie Lynch letter. That's all we saw. We
Mhm.
saw nothing else. We didn't hear about healing. Um,
Mhm.
we didn't hear about healing coming out of the enslavement we've been through. All we knew is we had to get a job, take care for them, and that continued
Yeah.
until now. And hearing you say this, um, the healing must happen. And I like the fact that you engage in that healing. I
Mhm.
follow you on all your channels
Mhm.
because I like the energy you bring. And it
Mhm.
says to me, this is a woman who's come through so much. She's finding the joy in what she's doing. So I wanted to ask, looking at what you've gone through, what would you have done differently? Now that you know better, what would you do differently now in your personal life?
Well, Mrs. Ziza, when you said, I've been through so much, and you see my bubbly personality and things like that, and a lot of people see that, right?
Mhm.
But what a lot of people don't see behind that is the closet within me, which is the work that I had to put in to actually get here. I wasn't always this person. I
Mhm.
was very bitter. I came from a very bitter energy. I was just very angry, and I just didn't understand. I didn't even want to take the time out to really understand who I was. And the things that, going back to your question, what would I have done differently? I would really have not gotten into a relationship. I would have not really seek validation from other people, because that was kind of like my biggest thing, was like seeking validation, seeking approval of others, looking for things on the outside thing. I just was just running on the outside, and nothing in the inside. It was no fill up in the inside. Everything was a fill up on the outside. So the things that
Mm-hmm.
I would probably do different, and what I tell my children is to be patient with yourself, take your time, get to know who you are, because I have adult children now, and I always tell them to build. Like, I have 4 children, they're in their early 20s. None of them have been in a relationship. I don't know if they're scarred or what, but none of them has been, really in a relationship. And I feel like the thing that I probably would have changed differently at talking to that little Tiffany at 17, I would have told
Mm.
her to just hold up. Where are you going? Where are you rushing to get to? Take
Yeah.
your time, enjoy your life, enjoy you. Get to
Yes.
know
Yes.
people, explore other people. Don't just have your eggs all in one basket. And that's what I kind of did. It was like, well, what if
Mm-hmm.
I never find anybody else that's going to want to marry me? It was just like that hope. And I feel like a lot of times women hold on to toxic relationships thinking that, well, what if I never find this person who's only going to even give me this much attention? And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times we be scared to kind of jump into that unknown. It's such a brilliant freedom, though. Like, it's so amazing.
Yes, I
So,
agree. I
yeah.
agree.
Hmm.
What is your biggest fear? I'm not going to dwell too much on where you came from,
Hmm.
because you've if I always say, if you return to something over and over, that tells me you haven't healed from it and it's still very
Hmm.
much there. So
Right.
what is your biggest fear?
So right now, my biggest fear and what I'm healing and working on is that I'm scared of love. That's my biggest fear right now, is love. And it's not for love for myself,
Mm,
actually trusting somebody with my heart, with love, going back. And yeah, like right now I'm working through that. That's what I'm healing on currently. My biggest fear right now is, like, honestly, like Miss Aziza, is to really love again, get into a relationship with someone again, and then being 2 years by myself and pouring so much into myself and being this happy Tiffany is like, the inner little
mhm.
Tiffany is like kind of getting selfish. I want to share that with anybody else? Because, like you said, being in a relationship with somebody, it kind of takes a part of you,
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's just like my fear right now is love.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's deep.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this one. Um, I'm I'm just. Do you have any regrets? Any
Okay.
regrets, and what is it?
Regrets. I could honestly, when I heard that, when you said that, it kind of triggered me, not in a bad way, but
Okay.
when it triggered me in a good way, because I was like, you know what? I really, to be honest with you, Mrs. Ziza, I have no regrets when it comes to my marriage. And why I say that is because I felt like, even though I was sitting and I don't even want to say a storm, but sitting in that level of toxicity, sitting in a situation where I wasn't truly, genuinely myself, and I was wearing a mask, it also protected and covered me. Because at the same time, had I not been in that relationship and not been like fully mature mentally or emotionally, I could have been running through Tom, Harry, Dick, Sam, oh, this person over there. I could have been just ran through so many different men because of that seeking of that validation.
Yeah.
So even though that my relationship, I stayed in it for so long, it still kind of protected me and covered me, because my relationship, I'm mature now, I'm 40, so I kind of know how to handle myself. I'm a lot more mature when it comes to my emotions. So it kind of
Mhm.
gave me a level of like protection on the other end. So I kind of look at it in a good sense of it. Like, I don't have any
Mhm.
resentment or any bitterness or any regrets.
Mhm.
But it didn't work out. It wasn't for us. It was a toxic
Mhm.
situation, but it was something that I needed to see. It was something that I needed to grow from. I needed to
Mhm.
heal from. And that trauma that we inflicted, because he also had his own trauma as well too. We
Yeah.
both
Yep.
trauma bonded. We came in there
Mhm.
bonded. And I just feel like, it's the
Mhm.
experience. And a lot of
Oh,
people, they
okay.
get sad about
Mm-hmm.
relationships. They're like, oh, it didn't work out and I got to go
Mm-hmm.
to the next. But it's all about the experience. And I feel like people need to give themselves more grace when they're going through divorce, when they're going through breakups, and always look at the good side of it. I know that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're going through something with someone, especially if someone did you really, really bad, you want to look
Mm-hmm.
at it in a sense of like, what is this person showing me within myself? Because I believe we project on each other. We
Yeah.
exchange each other's energy. So I looked at it like that. So I didn't have any regrets because I was
Mm-hmm.
mad at him before. I was really mad at him in the beginning, and I was more so mad because he completely abandoned us. Like I was with him
Mm.
for years, so he abandoned me and my children. I haven't talked to Raymond in 2 years since we
Wow.
left. Yeah, and
Oh.
in the times that we did have a little conversation, it was arguing. We couldn't even like really get our divorce done. So I haven't really got closure, like far as in having a peaceful outcome closure with him. And I had to really be
Mm-hmm.
at peace with him energetically. So like,
Mm.
I kind of just meditated on it. I astral travel. I sent him
Mm-hmm.
love. I core cut it. I did a lot of work with closure for
Mm-hmm.
myself alone. So that's how I kind of got it. I did it for myself.
For yourself. And that's
Yeah.
the best thing about anytime you do any kind of shadow work is for you.
Mhm.
Anytime you do anything for somebody else, it doesn't hit home the same way. You
Right.
said you had this fear of love. Have you ever, I'm gonna ask a loaded question, not
Yes,
quite too
please.
much.
Please. I
Have you
love it.
ever
I
felt
love it.
love since did you ever feel love in your marriage? Any type of love? Because it seems like there was always this push and pull, energies hitting, each other. Since you say you fear love, have you ever felt love or know what that is? What
So
love truly is?
so when I was married with him to him in the process of it, Miss Aziza, I fell in love with who he thought I was. Because after I got out of a relationship is when I really experienced true divine love. I didn't look at and I was, I was a heavy Christian, Christian person, went to spirituality. I have backing in both, right? But when I was in Christianity, I didn't have an understanding of divine love. I didn't have an understanding of divine love and true love and unconditional love for myself till after marriage. So if you ask
Mhm.
me now, I would say no, that wasn't true love. Okay, but when I was with him, I felt like, you know, if I have my hair a certain way, the house is clean, the kids is this, and I look this way, he loves me, he'll love this, he'll love the look of this. It was all a
Mhm.
mask, it was all an illusion. So I felt like the
Mhm.
love that I was with him, it was he loved me because of what I'm showing him. It was like I'm sure it wasn't a day where I couldn't go by. Like this man would come home at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I could be resting all day, but when he come home and I know he's about to pull up, it triggered. I got anxiety. Oh, let me get up. Let me make sure dinner is done. Let me
Wow.
make sure the house is clean. And it was like I had to make sure. It was like I lived in an anxiety frantic attack because I was like,
Mhm.
let me get up and put my mask on because it's time for me to get into role action and role play. So I didn't really get a chance to kind of like,
My
show him really
goodness.
who I was. I didn't show him. I don't think he even knows who I truly am. I didn't show
Mm.
him. I showed him a facade. I showed him fakeness, and I showed him, what it looks like, 3D wise, or
Mhm.
the white picket fence, the American dream. Like I showed
Yeah.
him that. But inside Tiffany wise, inside, no, I didn't show him that. I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know who he thought he was loving or who he fell in love with.
Ooh. Well, somebody asked a loaded question too. I'm gonna backtrack. How did you co-parent in that environment? Because it sounds like, my goodness, like, it sounds really hard. How did you
It was.
co-parent? How did you co-parent in that
So
environment?
to be honest with you guys, I co-painted alone. Yeah, I did it alone. he went to work. His routine was to go to work, come home, take a shower, and go to sleep. Like, it was just, long as he worked and handed his check, and this is the trauma that he's had from his childhood, because that's what his mom and his sister instilled in him, that all he had to do was work. So it was like, that was it. That was the relationship. Now, if I had to ask him, like, if I asked him, say, could you get up here and nail this up here on the wall? He would say, well, get one of the boys to do it. Get one of the boys to do it. It was always get the boys to do it, get the boys to do it. I have 3 boys. So my boys lost a lot of respect for him. I homeschool my children, so I'm hands-on, one-on-one with my children,
Yeah.
and I have a very, very close relationship with them. But he didn't build that with his children. So when they left, they was like,
Mm.
I don't ever want to see him again. Maybe not until 10 years. And I always check in
Mhm.
with them every 6 months. I'm like, are y'all ready to talk to your dad? Do y'all want to reach out to your dad? They like, no, mom, no, no. So he didn't really build a relationship with them. You could have 2 parents under the same household and don't
Mhm.
have a relationship with them. So,
Mm.
so co-parenting it was, again, it was just all of me. And he kept me in my masculine energy. So it was like, I have to pay
Mhm.
the bills, I have to run the household, I have to take care of the kids, I have to make
Yeah.
all the executive decisions, I have to manage our credit, manage this, manage that. So it was, he literally just went to work and just handed over his
Mhm.
check.
And that's something people don't understand, because although I didn't have children with my husband, I did the same thing. I was
Mhm.
taking care of everything. And to be honest, you get tired. You want to be soft and pink sometimes, you know? So I had
Yeah.
taken on so much and I hated it. I hated being male and female. And then you're expected to perform, in those intimate sessions. Like, and I was beat. I was tired. I didn't
Yeah.
want to do that anymore. And
Yeah.
I tapped into a lot of my masculine energy. And
Hmm.
I almost forgot how it felt to be feminine. And
Yeah.
I carried that with me quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna kind of change the tempo a little bit until we get another question coming in. So you've been through all of this,
Hmm.
24 years, 22 years, let's say, because you're checked out after 2 years. So 22 years of all of this, and you
Hmm.
finally had the strength to say enough.
Hmm.
How did you start your spiritual journey? Because saying enough is one thing, but then tapping into your spiritual self is a whole nother ball game. How were you able to tap? Yeah.
So I started my spiritual journey 5 years ago, and I actually was in it a year before I left him. And I
Mhm.
remember I always thought, like, our relationship was salvageable and fixable. And I was like, if we tried counseling and stuff. And I remember one of my healers said to me, she said, you're so afraid to leave him that he'll crumble. And she said that to me, and I was just like, what do you mean by that? I'm sure he'll be fine if I leave or whatever. And so we got into a really big argument again. And I remember, I break one of my breaking points was when I finally got fed up was what my son said to me. But another time before that is when I leaned on my daughter's shoulder. And I'm so grateful for my children, even though they had to endure a lot of this. I'm so grateful for them. But I leaned on her shoulder and I just told her, I said, Rihanna, I said, I physically just want to leave, but I'm mentally stuck. I can't leave. Like, mentally, something was just keeping me stuck there, but physically, I knew I needed to get out of this environment. And I left without $1 to my name. I went to a shelter. God has blessed me the entire time since I left. And I was scared. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know where my kids was going to live at. I'm staying at my sister's house. My kids are sleeping on my mom's floor. And I just didn't know. He kicked us out. And I just didn't know what I was going to do. But God, literally, when I tell you, like, the faith of a mustard seed when it comes to the Most High, he made sure we lived in a hotel. I was paying $1,000 a week. Like, he made sure that we was okay. We had food.
Mhm.
I just don't know where money was coming from, but all I know is that we was just well taken care of. We had a beautiful townhouse. My sister helped me along the way. So I was so grateful for my family and the support.
Mhm.
And the thing that I felt like that I left that finally had got me to leave, to be honest with you, my daughter did like she did like a cord cutting. She had lit this white candle for my ancestors and my spirit guides. And she was just like, Mom, you sure this is like, this is, she asked me, you sure this? I said, yes, Rihanna, I'm sure. I just want to go. I need the support. And I remember we stood at our altar and we prayed and stuff like that. I was praying with her and she just kept asking me. And I'm like, yes, I need to be free. And we had lit a white candle for our ancestors and we was just praying. And next thing I know, it was just like my mind was like, I felt unshackled, I felt unchained. And I was like, wow. And see, before I never did that, Mrs. Ziza. I never really prayed. Again, like, we could say we Christian, we could say we spiritual and all of this, but when you don't really have faith in prayer and the Most
Mhm.
High, when you don't talk to Him, when you don't talk to your God, when you don't talk to your ancestors, it's pointless. You're not getting that
Yes.
spiritual support that you need, that fill up. And like I said, that people don't understand that fill up is for things internally, spiritually wise, soul wise. It's like we can run on the ego all we want, but when we're not spiritually and soul fed,
Mhm.
it's just pointless. I could try to do this race all I want, but when I
Mhm.
left, I prayed, I wrote, I journaled. And the biggest thing for me when I left was, the hardest thing was to cry. It was like I couldn't
Mm.
cry. It just wouldn't come out of my chest, but my chest was hurting, my head is hurting, and it was just like so much like weight was sitting in my chest and in my shoulder. And I remember I started getting like my getting still healing. I'm seeing 3 different healers. You were one of them. Okay, I was talking to you, Miss K, Queen K, and Miss Christina and Kathy and Sheila. And
Mhm.
she kept saying to me, Tiffany, you're not sitting down and you're running around and doing everything, but you're not sitting down and emotionally dealing with this. And when I finally sat
Mhm.
down and emotionally dealt with it, Miss Aziza, I cried. Like, I went in my closet
Oh
and I
my
just
God.
like yelled and I cried. And I remember, I think I called him. I called him on the phone and I was in the closet and I was just like, I was just crying. I was just crying. It's like I couldn't even say nothing to him. I just cried to him and I just was like, and he was like, I know. And he went into cussing me out. Like, I was just like, how the fuck?
Wow.
And like, yeah, he did. Like, then he went into cussing me out, and I just hung the phone up. But the point of the matter is that I needed to release that. Those were
Yeah.
tears. Those were
Yeah.
emotions that I needed to let up and like release and stuff like that. So, and now I'm like getting better with like letting my emotions out. I still have more healing to do and stuff like that as
Mhm.
well. But it's a journey and it's an experience. And
Mhm.
again, I always challenge women to look inside yourself when you're sitting in toxicity and be aware
Mm.
of what you're actually sitting in. Because when you're sitting in it, I'm telling you, understanding the difference between sitting in an illusion and sitting in what's really true is
Yeah.
hard. It's so hard for people to do. They love the illusion and the delusion because it just feels like eating a bucket of ice cream.
Mm.
But if you take that bucket of ice cream away and you just gotta sit there and starve and you gotta deal with your reality and your truth, is so hard for people. They don't want to do that. They want to
Yeah.
eat ice cream.
Yeah. I love that analogy. Zaya's daughter, she doesn't have much of a voice, so she just asked a question. Was being married a part or all of your identity?
To me, I want to feel like it was all of my identity. It was all of
Wow.
my identity because um that's a very good question. Because to be honest with you, now I'm thinking, like, what was I outside of that? Like, what was I doing
Wow.
outside of that? And I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't serving nothing in my purpose. And again, like I feel like a lot of my healing journey was me stepping into my purpose, not knowing,
Mm-hmm.
oh, but just having complete faith. But a lot of my identities surrounded this person. My friend, his friends was my friends. I didn't even have no friends. His friend group was my
Mm.
group. So when they stopped, I stopped dealing with them. They stopped dealing with me. So I didn't have any, I didn't, his family, I was close to his family more than my own family, as far as in like outside of my brothers and sisters. But it was like when I stopped dealing with him, they cut us off too. So we completely like
Wow.
all alone outside of my sister, my brother, and my mom. But we was
Mm.
like left alone. So that's a good question that you asked me, because I really did not have no identity outside of that. I'm finding that now, and that's why I said I'm so scared and fearful to give even a part of myself to anybody, because I feel like I worked so hard to get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
You
It's
know,
true. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like it's just like me is my baby now, like and it's just like sharing it with
Mm-hmm.
somebody else. They would really have to really fully love me, ugly, bad, really understand my true, authentic self, who I am, what my purpose is. It will
Mm-hmm.
be a big shoe to fill.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Zion's daughter, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. It's so nice. I am having a terrible post. I had the flu that was going around, and so
Mm.
now I hardly have a voice. But
Oh.
I just wanted to come in. First, I'm really honored to meet you. Aziza talks about you. Empress Aziza talks
Oh.
about you a lot, a lot. And the subject that you're speaking on is a heavy one.
Mhm.
Divorce, especially as a spiritual woman. And the irony is that we have three women in this chat right now at three different stages of
Mhm.
marriage. I'm newlywed, only 7 years. Um, that's the baby stage.
Mhm.
Empress is handling her business, and you've handled your business while
Mhm.
I'm in the stage of handling my business.
Mhm.
And as I listen to you, especially talking about co-parenting in what can be perceived as a very toxic environment,
Right.
um, where you are taking on a full masculine role
Mhm.
and you're taking care of everything. I have heard so many women um, discuss that
Mhm.
within marriage,
Yeah.
and it is one of the burdens of the Black woman, I would say, that we are taught how to carry loads
Mhm.
so much
Yeah.
that to take off that load or to unburden from that load does not feel feminine
Mm.
or right.
Yeah.
So, so what the question that I'm leading to is, where was your feminine energy in taking care of things in your masculine energy?
Where was my feminine energy in taking care of things and my masculine energy? Well, I don't think it was there.
Wow.
I don't think it, and the reason why I said it wasn't there, because I feel like even my masculine side was trying to accommodate. Like it was like almost
Mm,
like I'm showing the chivalry in the relationship. So it was almost like an accommodating thing. Being in my feminine energy, and I feel like being in my feminine energy was the hardest thing for me to do when I got out of the relationship. And I just, and again, what I'm saying is that it wasn't about, to me, it wasn't about putting on hair or putting on a dress or putting on makeup. To me, now that I know, that wasn't really me. That wasn't feminine energy to me. Feminine energy is saying that, it's okay, Tiffany, to nurture yourself. It's okay to sit down. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to rest. Pat yourself on the back. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. It was just really like nurturing that inner Tiffany. I did not do that. It was really gone,
Mm.
crying out
Mm.
like, hello, I'm here, and you're just ignoring me because you're trying to pull your sleeves up and you're trying to do everything and get everything done, but you're ignoring everything in the feminine energy behind you. So I wasn't in a receptive mode to receive any type of love. I didn't understand what that was. I was
Wow.
always giving, always doing, and it was just overkill, like overkill. Like I literally, like, I remember I had a party for 4th of July, y'all. I must have spent over $1,000 for this 4th of July party to please everybody else. Like, I had the bells and the whistles, like a theater, all this food and drinks and all of this stuff at my house. And I remember it, and then I stopped after I did that, and I was like, well, who was I serving by doing that? Like, what was I serving by actually doing that? And
Mm.
again, I'm just like, it left a question mark in my head. It just left like, what was the point of
Mhm.
you doing that? Again, just to seek validation. So I didn't have any feminine energy. I didn't even have anything. I didn't know how to just sit down and relax and allow my man to do anything. Like I just didn't. I bought my own self flowers a lot of the times. That's when
Oh.
I tried to kind of start to get into it because that was the one thing that I really loved was like flowers and picnics. So I started taking my own self on picnics. I would take my daughter and we would have like goddess picnics, and I would buy my own self flowers, and I just started getting into stuff like that, and that's what really kind of started my awakening a little bit into my feminine energy. I still struggle with it now with dating. It's like I'm learning how to just relax and be a girl. Like it's really
Mhm.
tough. It is. Yeah,
Do
but
you
I
Oh.
didn't
think
have
that
any.
do you think that this is for women, period,
Hmm.
Um, we are Caribbean, Empress and I'm
Yes.
full Caribbean. Empress is, I'll say, part Caribbean because she's lived some time in the US.
Yes.
Mhm.
Um, so we are at three different cultural stages. Empress being the balance between the US and the Caribbean. And
Right.
whereas I've lived here all my life. So a lot of the decisions that I make is based on cultural perception as well as cultural impact of
Mm-hmm.
those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It's for me when I hear you, I hear so many women who are in marriages and don't have themselves,
Mm.
you know, and it's very hurtful to hear.
Mm.
Um, One of the things you said earlier was a story I've heard from a woman here in Barbados. Um, she said, when my boyfriend came home, the house was spotless.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you know anything about Caribbean women,
Mm-hmm.
how our homes look is the epiphany of femininity
Yeah.
to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
An untidy house is unacceptable as far as we're concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And she would say, I would make sure the house was spotless. I made sure my weight was great. I made sure everything was great. And he still cheated. And she could not comprehend it. So when I hear you say that now from a different culture, it makes you, it wounded me as a woman
Mm.
that, and I felt you and I felt every woman, I felt myself that if we put on weight, if the house is not spotless, and we set up these temples of rituals that we believe are formulas that will keep our home steady and perfect, and his opinion of us at the top always. And no matter how many times I've heard this story, it still wounds because those formulas are what you're hearing the men on the podcast saying. Where are the women who keeps home? Where are the women who make
Mhm.
sure that food is on the table? Where are the women who do these things? And yet those women are right in front of you and you still haven't cherished. Do you ever dissect your decisions and wonder if you could have, would you have done anything different?
Okay, so I want to go back to where you said that, where you said the woman where it was like, we do all of these things and they still cheat, you know, and the men on the podcast, and they always say this to me. I find when people say, where are the women who do this and where are the women who do that, they're really projecting outwards what they don't have internally. So when you're seeking and searching for something outside of yourself, that says a lot about a person and their healing versus getting to know somebody and understand somebody and truly like really love somebody unconditionally and fully without conditions. I think a lot of people on the podcast, a lot of women, a lot of the community and the culture right now is loving and looking and searching for validation on conditions. Do he have a job? Do he have this? Can he do this and do that? When they're not really seeking that search or that validation or things like that within themselves. So right now, love to me, it looks very condition based. So I'm not really like kind of um and that's why it makes it a little scary with dating. But love to me right now, it just feels very conditioned. I don't want to
Mm,
deal with someone who looks at me as, I look a certain way, or I keep. Of course, I'm gonna do those things because I'm a woman and I just carry that anyway. But I don't want a man to look at me for cooking and cleaning and looking a certain way and having this trophy on his arm, or so to speak. I don't want a man for that. I want, like, I need somebody who can see internally, who sees my soul, who sees my light.
Mm.
So it's a lot more to me than just all of those things. And again, like you said, you hear a lot of women do that, and a lot of women are doing that and saying that because they're now realizing that they skipped the part of actually finding those things that they want a man to see in them within themselves. So we skipped over all of that and we just like, oh, if we just look nice, if we just cook, if we just clean, we can keep a man, but the man still went out and cheated. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of like we skipped over a lot of things instead of finding that solid solidification within ourselves and being solid within who we are. And that's what we're bringing to the table. It kind of, we just kind of skipped and missed the part. And then I think, what would you ask me about the regret part? I'm sorry, what was the second question?
Um, did you regret, you know, being, doing all the formulas? Would you have done anything different?
um, I don't regret doing what I was doing because I did at some point I found happiness in it because I felt like it would make everybody else around me happy. So I don't regret doing any of those formulas. What I do regret is doing it for everybody else. That's the part I do. Like what I did, like homeschooling my kids and cooking and baking and all that stuff and cleaning. I found joy in it because I have children. It was a nurturing thing to do in my household, but at the same time, it was my reasoning behind doing it because I still do those things today with or without a man. But it was my reasoning at that time. Like I had to do shadow work. I had to be real with myself. Like, Tiffany, you only did this. Like, let's be real. You're only doing this because you want to make this person happy. You want to put a smile on your face. Like, yo, I haven't even really cooked like that in 2 years. So now
Mm,
I'm realizing, like, although I know how to cook, it wasn't something that I really enjoyed, but I did it to put a smile on this person's face. So it was my reasoning that I regret of why I did what I did. But I actually found joy in what I was doing. And I think, to be honest with you, because of my children. So I love doing certain things for my children and putting smiles on their face and things like that. But again, it's a thin line between having joy in what we're doing and actually, the reasoning behind what we're doing, the things that we're doing. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Empress Aziza, I'll hand back over to you. My voice,
That was
my voice
awesome.
can only take so much. Thank you so much for
Oh my
talk.
goodness.
Yeah.
Well,
And one
Go
more
ahead,
thing. I'm
go ahead,
sorry, Miss
Tiffany.
Lisa. I really do love like everything that that you're doing, especially with for our men and our boys, because I feel like divine men, they just get swept under the rug. They get overlooked. They get ridiculed a lot, and they're very much like broken and things like that. But it's also the women too. Like I said, I just feel like women, we have to really, really start looking within. We have to really start seeking a lot of things that we're asking from are these men within ourselves. To me, it's
Mm.
not being about independent. We could be dependent women, we could be submissive women, but we have to seek that within ourselves. And that's what God has been telling me. God is like, oh, are you really ready to go in another relationship? You still have more work to do. You still have to, you have to build your stability. You have to be emotionally balanced. And again, those were the things that I did not do in the beginning of the relationship. So I feel like men and women is really important as divine beings, that we really seek and search those things within ourselves, and we understand what it is that we have to build. Like my principle is to always like learn and to teach that you have to build yourself emotionally, mentally, and as well as financially stable wise. Those three things have to be built within us before we could even give ourselves to other people or find anything when it comes to a mate. Because a mate, we're two people coming together, working together. It's not about me carrying all the weight or you carrying all the weight.
Mm-hmm.
So I really
That's
do
such a
think that.
level of maturity to come to that kind of decision, though. And that level of maturity doesn't even always come with age, but unfortunately, it ends up coming with experience, huh?
Right.
That your level of thinking and the level of giving of yourself and the
Mm-hmm.
level of receiving,
Mm-hmm.
it comes with maturity.
Yeah.
And if age was a sign of maturity, then we would expect that when we hit 30, I'm going to be this level of mature. I'm
Yeah.
40, I'm going to be that level of mature. But
Mm-hmm.
the experiences, if we don't learn from, if we don't shadow them and assimilate them into our daily walk, they don't bring
Mm-hmm.
maturity or experience enough for you to share with others
Right.
or internalize enough to make decisions. Okay, I have to leave this marriage, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stay, but we got to talk about this, or I cannot live with this. So, as someone who's like still in the honeymoon phase, as I listen to you, I am learning so much from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I gather that you so want to share with other women.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you ought to, because we as women are seen as a failure should our marriages end in divorce. If we were
Mm.
business women and our businesses failed, everyone will be kicking us and saying, "Get up, go get another one. You
Right.
failed here, but that was okay. That was business." But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to marriage, it's like if we're supposed to just fall away and hide away because we've a shame has been brought to us. And it is awesome to see you in your truth, owning your truth, and
Yeah.
sharing it with other women in such a bold and heartfelt way. You know,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking my questions as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that so
Oh
much.
my goodness. This is absolutely awesome. We're coming up on close to the hour mark. So I have one question.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just going to be something just cool because you shared so much with us. And as Zion's daughter said, your authentic self. And that's what we need to
Mhm.
heal going forward. Because,
Right.
as you said, we like to put the mask on and show the world one face and
Mhm.
suffer in silence. But it's time that our stories be put out there. As Zion's daughter always tell me, the event, the emotion, and I'm stuck on those two things. Every time we talk about something, she always mentions the event and the emotion. She's amazing.
Mhm.
Um, so I am going to ask you, tell us an interesting fact about you. And what was the last thing you Googled? Just to bring it down a notch.
What was the last thing that I Googled? The Leo full moon. That's tomorrow. So that was the last thing I've been googling. Is this full moon? I am a Leo, so I was definitely researching that and how I could benefit that. I always try to benefit off the energy of where the planets are. And then an interesting fact about me that I have like recently learned to embrace was my sensuality. So that's a new thing that I've like been getting into is like loving my body, exploring my body. Because before I got into this, I wanted to go have surgery. I wanted bigger boobs and a flatter stomach. I had 4 children. So, I worked out 6 days a week. So I was always very self-conscious about my body. So one of the biggest things that I'm learning about myself is my sensuality, my womanhood, my divinity, my feminine energy. Another thing that I'm also learning about myself, a fact about myself, is my stillness, which was very hard for me to do as well.
Mm.
So I love my hermit mode. I love sleeping alone. I sleep so peaceful, and I love just my alone time. Going out to the park, walking, sitting in my car for hours, not worrying about if a man or the kids or anybody calling me. It's just I could flow and it just feels so good. Like my head just feel peaceful, and now it allows me to literally, like you were saying, speak to other people, but to really be in my purpose to help and give to other people. And that's what I love doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you could, we're going to wrap it, Charlie, but if you could invite 3 people to dinner, living or dead, who would that be? Who would you
Oh
invite?
my God. I'm so glad you asked me that. If I could invite 3 people, it would definitely be Harriet Tubman is one.
Oh.
Okay. Nipsey Hussle.
Oh,
I love Nipsey Hussle. It would
you might
definitely
get a beat down.
it would be and maybe Tupac. Like they are my crushes right there. I love them. I love all 3 of them because I love the things that they stood for. Their integrity, their truth, their honesty. I just love all 3 of them. It would be Tupac, Nipsey, and Harriet Tubman. Like I love their
Mhm.
strength, their tenacity that they showed, and how they just was like, they just was themselves, and they just didn't really. I'm not gonna say they didn't care, but it was just like, this is who I am. This is what the world needs to accept about myself, and that's what they kind of showed me. And even like with Harriet, it was like her purpose and the driven force that was behind her, and it was like her strength. To all 3 of those people just show me strength, the courage to keep going. So those are 3 people I would be like, oh my God, I would love to sit down and have dinner with them.
Oh my gosh. Zion's daughter, you want to ask anything?
Yes, sure. You had dinner with 3 awesome historical figures, but where would you like to go in the world and why?
I would love to visit South Africa. That's what I would love.
Okay.
South Africa or South America. I would love to visit there. I really want to do either the rainforest and I want to do something in Africa. Like those are probably two places I would visit. I would love to visit. There's still other places here in the United States that I need to touch ground, but I would love to visit those two places, South America,
Mhm.
South Africa.
I didn't
Any
hear
particular
Barbados in
place in
there.
South America? I was
Huh?
gonna say she didn't ask Barbados, but
Oh no,
um,
because that place, Barbados. I'm just gonna come to Barbados. I know I gotta get there. I do that. Barbados to me, I feel like is because I've traveled a lot around the Caribbean, and so I'm like that's just a natural given. That's like a sister home to me. But an exotic place to go would be like South Africa and be like with the animals, like the elephants, and see like
Mm.
like see different trails and tribes and stuff like that. Like I would love that experience. In South America, I want to do like a rainforest experience there. So I would,
Mm.
yeah. If I
maybe
could
some
do like
places
the
Okay.
Paraguay or Brazil.
Yes, yes, yeah. So
Oh,
I would love to
Oh.
do something. I would just want to see like what the air smells like and feels like, and
Uh-huh.
to just if I could, because I would love to like just do it like in a maybe like in a nudist environment, like just a free nudist environment. Like I don't know, I just want to explore those two areas. But
Wow.
Barbados feels like a sister home to me. Like that's like easy to just jump over there and go. I'm coming, Miss Aziza. I'm coming. I'm coming.
That's a good save. That's a good save because
you're not
what's
exotic
next?
anymore. I am crushed.
What's next on your journey?
Well, what's next for me is continuing to produce my talk show, which talks about transformation stories, healing and transformation stories,
Yeah.
different women's spiritual journey, not just women, but men too, but different people
Mm-hmm.
journey. Because I feel like the biggest thing for me that got me through my healing journey was coming on live, was connecting with people in social media, and being able to speak my truth and talk. Like that was very healing. That was very therapeutic for me. So my next thing is to focus on my talk show, continue to heal. I'm doing a Reiki master class that I want to get into. So, I want to learn different other healing aspects and abilities and stuff like that within myself. So,
Oh,
I
wow.
want to help heal the whole world if I could.
But you got help from Sacred Warrior Mothers because that's our thing. We are about what we say, Zion's daughter. When a woman cries, a nation listens. So
Mm,
we have to start this healing journey, not just for ourselves, but for our
right.
children. Because when we return, we want to come back to something beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So we got to
Yeah.
do it for the children. You know,
Absolutely.
how can people find
Absolutely.
you, Tiffany? How can people
Oh,
find you?
so I am on all of the platforms as Seventh Harmony Place. On YouTube, Seventh Harmony Place, Instagram, Seventh Harmony Place, and the same as TikTok. I'm not really much on Facebook that much, but those three are my major platforms. I do have a lot of fake accounts, so just be mindful of that. I will never ask anyone for a reading or donation or anything like that. But I'm on all of the platforms and I do daily readings and lives and things like that. I'm heavy into like astrology and intuitive reads and things like that on my YouTube channel. So you can find me there.
Yes, and
Well,
people,
I'm on
she is
TikTok,
the
so I
boss.
will find you. I'm on TikTok as I am Zion's daughter, so I will find you and add you.
Okay,
Oh
okay.
my goodness. So before we wrap up, I wanted to read from Something More. I absolutely love this book, and
Okay.
it's by Sarah Brunner. I hope I called her name correctly. And it says, you need to claim the events of your life to make yourself yours. When you truly possess all you've been and have been undone, which may take some time, you are fierce with reality. So
Mm,
you've been through it. I didn't know we only scratched the surface in this interview. We just barely scratched the surface, but it's enough to give people what they need to
mhm.
start that inner healing, because that's what it
Yeah.
has to be about for us as a people. We've
Mm,
never really looked at our traumas.
Right.
And when we created, Zion's daughter and myself, we created something called Journey to Me, 21 Days of Inner Healing.
Right.
And coming out of our event we had on January 21st, we offer that to people for free. And it's a 3-step process. But in 21 days, you would have known yourself better than you did before you started the process. And it
Wow.
starts you on that journey. So we give it to people for free. We are investing in the people of Barbados, the Caribbean, and the world.
Nice.
So if people want to get that, they can send us an email and we can send that to them. It's a creation of Sacred Warrior Mothers. We are really investing in our healing. We
Yeah.
have to heal for our children.
Yes.
They're the
Nice.
most important. The children coming on the planet, they're the gods. So we have to create the better world for them. And your story today is that story that will make people stop and look at themselves, because you've been through it so that we don't have to now do it. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Zion's daughter, you want to end with anything? A
I
word of
just want to
encouragement?
encourage, yes, not just Tiffany, but women who are at the different stages of their marital life, whether you've just begun, you're going through, or you have been through. The event that you've been through, going through, have been through, can shape or make you. It can shape you, it can make you, it can break you. Look at the emotions of yourself. Look at the emotions and what that emotion is transforming, shaping, or developing you to be. Those emotional places is where you will live, it's where you will journey, or it may be where you can make the worst decisions ever.
Yes.
Check those emotions. That's all I
Yes.
have to say. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Aw.
Thank you so much, my love.
Thank
Continue on the
you.
journey, and I know you're going to visit us again. And
Yes.
continue to grow and continue to
Yes.
shine and continue to dance. I love to see you dance.
Oh, thank you. I do
Continue your
every day.
dancing.
Every day I dance too. Thank you, Miss
Yes,
Lisa.
that
Yeah.
lightens my spirit when I see you dancing. I'm like, look at her, and I just smile. Sometimes I'll put the little heart, but I just look forward to seeing you dance.
Thank
Dance
you.
like no one is watching, and laugh like there's no tomorrow. Peace and
Awesome.
blessings, y'all.
Peace
Thank
and
you.
blessings. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.